everybody, and welcome back to another brand new episode of Theories from a Daydreamer. We are on episode 4. Can you believe it? A whole month of this podcast, and it is just honestly so exciting. But today we are actually following on from last week's episode. So if you tuned into last week, you will know that we spoke about the opening of Magic Kingdom and kind of what the opening day was like and everything that went into getting it ready for opening day in them last few years. And I didn't quite have time to squeeze this on the end. I thought it could make a whole little podcast in itself. It may be a slightly shorter one, but knowing me, it probably won't, because I can literally talk and talk and talk. But today we are going to be talking about the original attractions that were there on opening day along with Magic Kingdom. And I'm not going to lie, most of them are still there to this day, which I think is just so special. I really like that you can go to Magic Kingdom today, 53 years later than the opening day, and you can still get a bit of that opening day magic and that bit of Disney history, knowing you're riding some attractions that have been there from the very beginning. I just really love that, and I feel like not a lot of people know what them original attractions were. And I did slightly mention it in last week's video as well, but actually they were really rushed for time with the opening of Magic Kingdom. So they did have a bunch of rides that opened on opening day with the park. But also throughout the year of 1971, they did open a lot of other attractions as well, which were planned to be released on opening day with Magic Kingdom, but just didn't get around to being finalised and finished. Literally, we will run through them, but some of them literally opened like a day after opening day or 4 days after opening day. They just didn't quite make it on the 1st of October. And then we have some that opened a month later, a year later, but all still kind of within that first part of time. So I feel like they all kind of fall under the same category. They have been there since the beginning, basically. So unfortunately my iPad just isn't playing ball today. It is so out of battery. I've literally been trying to charge it for like the past 15 minutes and it just hasn't loaded up yet. So I will be reading all my notes off my phone today, which might be a bit of a struggle because it is a lot smaller than on the iPad, and if I have to fact check anything as well, that's going to take a little bit more time, but we will hopefully be able to make it work at least until my iPad decides to power up again. But I think it's fair to just start jumping straight into it. So from what I could find, there were a total of 23 attractions on Magic Kingdom's opening day, which again was on the 1st of October 1971. The attractions were spread all across the park's 6 themed lands. So of course these lands are the same to the ones which we've got today. So they are Main Street USA, Frontierland, Adventureland, Tomorrowland, Fantasyland, and Liberty Square. I just want to pop a quick disclaimer out there. I think the term like attraction has slightly changed over time. Obviously now I would kind of consider an attraction a ride. So anything where you have to get in your own carriage, you have to queue for it, something along them lines. I know obviously now Disney's got attractions, they've got shows, they've got experiences, they've got performances in the street and stuff like that. They've got loads of stuff going on. So it's hard to kind of narrow them down and know what you mean when you're talking about attractions, because basically all of them could fall under the term attractions, which I think they've kind of done with this, because a lot of these attractions I technically wouldn't consider attractions today, but they are just basically talking about any entertainment throughout the park. So let's jump straight into it and talk about the first land that you walk into when visiting the Magic Kingdom, which is Main Street USA. Actually today Main Street doesn't have any physical attractions or rides to go on. They do have a lot of them experiences, like I said. A lot of people down the street interacting with you and shows going on. Obviously they've got parades and stuff like that which all go throughout Main Street, but in terms of actual rides and queuing to get on some sort of moving attraction, they don't actually have that down Main Street. However, on opening day they did actually consider to have 3 attractions in Main Street USA, and we will run through them now. So the first one is Main Street vehicles. So this included several different types of transportation, including horse-drawn trolleys, horse-drawn omnibuses, not too sure what that is, antique fire engines, and a jitney, which is an early form of a bus. Again, I'm not sure if I pronounced that right. But all these vehicles were restored to their original condition and were operated by trained drivers down Main Street, and they were able to provide historical context about Main Street USA and the vehicles themselves, which is really interesting. I know I spoke about it in, I think, the 2nd episode of this podcast. It was all about Main Street USA, but this was really reminiscent of Walt Disney's childhood, and he had a really close connection to it basically. And obviously it was meant to, and still does, replicate a era before a lot of us were born. So I think it's really lovely to know that people used to drive around and kind of give context of the area, was able to say facts about the time, as well as the vehicles they were using and operating as well is so interesting. I'm not sure if people were actually allowed to ride in these, and I'm also not sure if this still goes on to this day. I believe in the fire station down Main Street, USA in Magic Kingdom, there is an old fire engine, but it's kind of roped off. I don't think it comes out anymore, but you can still go and view it if you want to. And then I know they do have a few shows down Main Street, USA, like the trolley bus and stuff like that, which are obviously restored vehicles too. But in terms of people actually freely driving down Main Street, I don't think that actually goes on anymore. It's probably just with the fact that obviously crowds have risen, more people visit, and that street is packed full of people most of the time. So it's probably a little bit of a health and safety rule, and I think Main Street has come on a lot since that original kind of representation of it. Obviously they don't talk so much about the era of Main Street or anything like that. It's kind of now more so that main hub that you go to watch the parades, to sit and relax and just watch the castle and stuff like that. But I personally would really enjoy if they brought a little bit more history back to Main Street, because there is so much context which you can talk about. And again, when you relate it back to Walt Disney himself too, I just think that is so magical and just allows people to feel like they're a little bit closer to him as well. I just think that would be really special. Moving on to the second attraction, which opened along with Magic Kingdom on opening day. This is the Main Street Cinema, which they definitely do not have anymore, but I think would be so fun. So the Main Street Cinema had a vintage atmosphere and featured a collection of classic films that date back to the silent film era. So this included Mickey Mouse cartoons and other Disney classics, and it was on a continuous loop, so visitors were allowed to enter whenever they wanted, stay for as long as they wanted, and then leave when they felt like they wanted to, which I think is a really nice idea, because definitely, especially nowadays, you do have parts of them days where you're kind of waiting for the next thing, whether you've got a lightning lane or a fast pass or a show you want to go to. You do have them chunks throughout the day where you kind of got a bit of free time, but it's not quite enough time to go and actually do something, if that makes sense. So I think this idea is really fun, the fact they had a cinema and you could just go in when you pleased and leave when you wanted to. And I can also imagine it was perfect when it was getting a little bit too warm outside. You just wanted somewhere to go and relax and just sit for 5 or 10 minutes. I can imagine it was probably really popular. I'm not sure why they got rid of it. The only reason I could think of is probably because they wanted to introduce something else, either a store down Main Street or a character meet and greet, which I know are super popular down there now. But this sounds really fun. It almost reminds me of when you go into the resorts and they have Mickey cartoons playing for the kids on like the tiny TV, and they've got a tiny sofa. I don't know whether they still do that, but that has just unlocked a memory for me. Yeah, when you used to go and visit the resorts and they would have the cartoons playing and your parents would be talking or checking in or something like that, and you could just go and sit on that tiny little sofa and watch like it on the old TV screen. Oh, I don't know if that's still going on. Let me know in the comments if you've been to Disney recently and they're still doing that, because honestly, if they are, I'm going to definitely go and get a photo of that and sit and watch a cartoon or two. And then the final opening day attraction Main Street USA had, which they still do have to this day, is the Walt Disney Railroad Station. And this is something you can actually see before entering the park. It is the main thing, like as you walk in, the main building you can see, kind of covering the castle, I guess, in a way. And on opening day, 3 trains were in service. So the first train was called the Walter E. Disney, which of course was named after Walt Disney, the man himself. And then the other trains were called the Lily Bell, which was named after Walt Disney's wife. And then the final one was named after Roger E. Broggie, who is considered to be Disney's first Imagineer and worked as a mechanical engineer. So he operated a lot of the equipment throughout the parks and kind of got them original concepts, and I guess had a really big hand in making them railroads a reality too. So that's really interesting. I'm really intrigued to know whether them trains are still running under them names, or whether they've been discontinued over time. I will definitely be checking that out on my next visit. So moving on, if we're walking clockwise around the park, we then get onto Adventureland, and they had 2 attractions live on opening day, and both of them are actually still here. You can still ride them, so I would definitely recommend going on them now, knowing that they were there from original opening day. So the first one is the Jungle Cruise. Honestly, such a classic and a different ride every single time you go on it. And then the second of which is being the Swiss Family Treehouse. I have never actually been up the treehouse, which I think is really embarrassing to admit, we kind of just miss it. I know in Adventureland there are so many attractions now, so many things to do, so many good snacks as well, and we just seem to walk past it. I believe it is literally right by the Jungle Cruise, and kind of when I walk into Adventureland, I'm just blindsided and go straight to the Jungle Cruise. But I've seen a few of my influencers that I watch online. My Disney YouTubers have been going up the treehouse a lot more regularly. I've been seeing it on a lot of vlogs, and it actually looks really interesting. Again, shows a lot of history, has got a lot of stuff to read up there by the looks of it, so I feel like I would actually really enjoy it, and it would probably give you a really good view of Adventureland too, which would be really, really interesting. And of course, now that I know it dates all the way back to opening day as well, I will definitely be making time for it in my next trip as well. Just a little extra fact as well, the Leaky Tikis, which is an underrated thing in Adventureland and Magic Kingdom as a whole, if I'm honest. I absolutely love when I see them. They bring me so much like joy and serotonin that I didn't even know I needed, just on top of the magic of the parks. But I just think they are so fun. I love them, and they are perfect when you're sweaty, it's really muggy and hot, and you just want to cool off a little bit. You just go and stand by them and you just feel a lot better. So yes, the Leaky Tikis were also here on opening day, but they didn't shoot water at this time, which, I mean, if I'm honest, the water is what makes them. It is so fun, and I just found it really interesting that they have been there since the very beginning as well. I think we should give them a little bit more appreciation when we go, because they are the OGs, honestly. So then moving on to the next, oh, my iPad has just decided to turn on. So then moving on to the next land, which is Frontierland, there were a lot of attractions that opened the same day as Magic Kingdom. There were actually 5 in total from what I can see here. So the first one was, of course, the Country Bears Jamboree, and at the time of the opening day, it was actually sponsored by Pepsi. The second of which was called Davy Crockett's Explorer Canoes, which was an attraction which allowed visitors to experience the thrill of paddling a real canoe around the rivers of America, which surrounds Tom Sawyer Island, which sounds like a little bit dangerous nowadays, but I bet it was really, really fun and interesting. And again, a lot of sites, a really good way to give you a different look at Magic Kingdom. And I love that the Disney parks did used to introduce some more like wholesome activities like that. It wasn't all about the big machinery and technology. Some were just as easy as just like riding a canoe boat like that, which I think is really, really fun, and just what a lot of people were used to, kind of helped to break that barrier between Disney being this kind of place that was so magical it was almost hard to believe, but then also having that experience that it was different to just your normal holiday as well. It was kind of like that middle ground, which I really think helped build up Disney's presence and popularity as well. The next attraction was the Frontierland Shootin' Arcade. I don't know why I said it like that, but it's just because shootin' is spelled like that. I can't say it in an English accent. I will sound absolutely ridiculous. More ridiculous than I have just sounded. But basically, this attraction allowed visitors to test their marksmanship skills using a rifle-styled controller to shoot at various targets, such as tin cans, lanterns, and other objects. The targets were all set up in a variety of scenes that are meant to resemble the Wild West, with saloons, mines, and other frontier-themed settings. So, fun fact about this attraction as well, they actually used lead pellets, which resulted in each of the targets needing to be repainted every single night. So honestly, it's no surprise that they got rid of this in the long run. It must have been so much maintenance thinking about it. As you know, Disney is very well known for like literally being so clean, so precise and pristine. Basically, when you go there, considering there are so many people that visit it throughout the year, there is basically no wear and tear. Everything looks as good as new. There's no marks on anything, or even just where people have been touching stuff constantly. You don't see any wear or tear. It is so mind-blowing when you actually think of it, like the quantity of people that walk through there. And just for example, when you walk through your hometown or something like that, and you can just see like the gradual destruction of things over time and people using them, the fact that Disney's hardly got any of them, and like I say, when you're going through the attractions, you're going through the queue lines, you're getting in and out of the vehicles, you can't see any marks or grazes or rips or tears or anything. It is all in such pristine condition, which is astonishing. I guess Disney have loads of techniques to make this work for them, but definitely the Shootin' Arcade didn't do that for them. The fact that they had to go in and repaint everything every single night obviously was not very helpful to stick to and keep up with, especially throughout the following years where the park did start to gain more popularity. I can imagine it became a really big stress, probably more stress than it was worth, if I'm honest. So it's no surprise that they got rid of that in time. The fourth attraction we have actually already spoken about, but it is the Frontierland station for the Disney World Railroad. So obviously it took off at Main Street, and then you could also get off or board in Frontierland as well. Again, I won't go into too much detail because I kind of explained that in Main Street USA. But yes, at this time it literally did only have them 2 stops, so you could only get it from Main Street USA to Frontierland and back again. And then lastly, the final attraction that opened along with opening day in Frontierland was Tom Sawyer Island. Obviously, this is still open to this day, and I don't know how they got over at this time, because obviously they had them canoe boats running. Maybe that was the only way you could get to Tom Sawyer Island. I'm not too sure. But yes, that has been an area of the park that has been there since the very first day. And again, I don't take much appreciation for Tom Sawyer Island. I couldn't probably even tell you the last time that I went there, which is really, really bad. So we'll definitely be making it a must on my next trip again. Moving on to Liberty Square, they had 3 attractions open on the opening day of Magic Kingdom, and this was, of course, the Hall of Presidents, which is still there to this day, and if anything, is probably the main attraction which is updated the most regularly, obviously because presidents change on an average of 4 to 8 years at a time. I'm not gonna lie, the Hall of Presidents isn't my favourite attraction, but I do try and make time for it every time I go. Again, it's a really nice thing to go on when you want to relax, you want to go and sit in the aircon for a little bit, and try and learn what you can about America. This is the main reason Walt Disney introduced Liberty Square into Magic Kingdom. It is the only land that was added extra and wasn't taking over from Disneyland in California, because Walt Disney really had a passion for old American history and he wanted to introduce that education a little bit more throughout his parks. So for that reason, it is really important to go and try and view it when you can. But again, it is not the most gripping attraction. The Haunted Mansion has also been there since opening day. However, it was very different in the beginning. As you can probably imagine, it didn't have an interactive queue at the very beginning, which again is no surprise. But the queuing system for the Haunted Mansion today is actually probably one of my favourite parts of the ride. I love it. It is so fun, and I would almost overrule going in the queue rather than getting a fast pass or lightning lane for it. Is that crazy? I don't know, but I just find it so fun, and I probably will do a whole separate podcast on it as well. But when you see all the hidden details of it as well, and the things you can pick out and the meanings behind them and stuff that maybe not everyone in the queue will see, it just makes it so much more fun. And yeah, it's a really enjoyable experience. The only downside, obviously, it is boiling because it is all outside, but yeah, the attention to detail on there is just top notch. But obviously on opening day, it did not have this interactive queuing system, and the story was actually very different in the ride as well. And it didn't at the time actually feature the same narrative that we know today about the bride and all stuff like that. It was kind of just more generic Haunted Mansion vibes, rather than actually having a main narrative and story to follow throughout it. And then the final attraction, which isn't actually there today, is called the Mike Fink Keel Boats. And this was 2 small boats which circled around the rivers of America. This was literally all the information I could find about it. But I think they were like boats that were controlled by cast members and people could get on and off them. So kind of like an attraction before the Liberty Riverboat. And while we are on that as well, the Liberty Square Riverboat didn't make opening day, unfortunately, but it did open the day after. So it opened on October 2nd, 1971. Which, like I said, it was probably planned to open on the same day as the park, but just didn't quite make it. But the fact literally 24 hours later it was there is just mind-blowing. You think if something's not going to make it, it's literally way in the future, or at least a few weeks or a month. But the fact it literally opened a day later, it must have been such a frustration for so many people. And I love the Liberty Riverboat. Again, such a lovely attraction to go on if you just want to relax and see the views and kind of just take your day in. It is a really good one to go on. So moving swiftly on to the biggest section of Magic Kingdom, both today and back in the day as well, we are now going to be talking about the opening day attractions of Fantasyland. So in total there were 8 attractions that opened alongside the park on October 1st, the first of which being such a special one, and definitely an underrated fact which you can tell so many people the next time that you go. So this is actually Cinderella's Golden Carousel, which is now more currently known as Prince Charming's Regal Carousel. And believe it or not, it's actually older than Magic Kingdom itself. It is a carousel which is actually refurbished, and it was created in 1917. So it is super old. Like, over 100 years old. And I just find that mind-blowing that it is still operating to this day. It just shows how magical and special it is, and I think it's a fact you should tell everyone that you can next time you go. Maybe when you say you want to ride the carousel and people are like, oh, I don't know, it's not the most exciting if I'm honest, but just the fact it is older than the park itself, there is so much history and beauty in it, and they honestly don't make attractions like that anymore. So I think it is definitely a must-do when you go, and it's like a 5-minute ride, so just enjoy it when you can. There's not really normally that long a queue for it either, especially if you go at the right time. So yeah, please from me, just go and give it a ride and just take it all in. The fact that this is an original in every sense of the word, even before Magic Kingdom opened itself or was even a concept, this carousel was around. It is just so special. Please go and do it. The second attraction, which opened along opening day of Magic Kingdom, again is still in the park to this day, and it is the iconic It's a Small World ride. Honestly, do I need to say more? It is top tier. I absolutely love it. It is a must every time I go. I know the song can be a little bit annoying, but honestly, the ride is so beautiful. I love looking at all the details and just everything that goes into making it what it is. It is such a magical ride and I absolutely love it. I love that it's still here. I love that it opened on opening day, and I just hope it never disappears. And if I'm honest, I don't think it ever will, because it is such a classic. The next attraction is the Mad Tea Party, so the spinning teacups. This actually did open on opening day as well, which I found really interesting. I don't know why, but I thought this was more of a recent attraction, something that opened more like in the 90s, 2000s when I was a child, but it wasn't. It's actually been there since the very beginning. However, when it first opened, it didn't have the canopy around it, which it does now. The next one I know is fan favorite, but unfortunately it is not there anymore, and it is Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. Now, this is actually still in Disneyland, California. You can still go and ride it over there. However, in Magic Kingdom in Florida, it did actually get replaced with Winnie the Pooh. A little fun fact about this ride as well, when you are riding it and you are going through that scene where kind of everything in the house is destroyed and kind of turned upside down in the Winnie the Pooh attraction, you can actually see a photo frame of Mr. Toad handing the deeds of the ride to Owl, which is just such a lovely little touch. I know resonated with a lot of people because Mr. Toad's Wild Ride was really loved by a lot of different people. And when it went and got replaced, I know a lot of people were upset about it. I mean, Mr. Toad is a massive character. He is still represented in the Magic Kingdom park to this day. You can still buy a lot of merch with him on. Obviously, he is represented in the Winnie the Pooh ride, which replaced his ride. And he is also in the cemetery of the Haunted Mansion ride as well, which is another fun little fact. Something I learned very recently about this attraction too is it was actually different to the one in Disneyland in California. It had 2 different tracks. Again, I wasn't lucky enough to ever ride this ride. I think it had disappeared by the time I had started going to Disney World. But the Mr. Toad Wild Ride had 2 separate tracks, a left-hand track and a right-hand track, and they were actually completely different stories apparently. So depending on what one you went on, you would get a different experience, which again just made people want to go on it more and try it out, try and get the different tracks, which again is a really good technique to try and get people coming and get people excited to visit the park, which I know Walt Disney made a really high priority on his list, that fact that he wanted to get people to continue to want to come to Disney World, always have something new to give a go. And yeah, this kind of just having the 2 different tracks did mirror that kind of concept and idea that he was trying to push so heavily. The next attraction, which is again still there to this day, is Snow White Adventures. Again, I feel like I haven't been on this for a really long time. I'm not gonna lie, it did used to absolutely terrify me. But yeah, I don't feel like I've been on this for a while, but we'll definitely be making it a priority again now that I know it's there since opening day. I will probably find a new sense of appreciation for it. The next attraction, which again is unfortunately not here to this day, is the Skyway to Tomorrowland, and you can see a lot of this in a lot of photos from the original opening day or back in the day. Just any retro photos of Magic Kingdom in Florida. It is basically like the Skyliners, which we have today, but just on a smaller scale. So it was basically a set of cable cars that took you from Fantasyland to Tomorrowland and back again. I'm not too sure why they got rid of this. I feel like this would be a really fun activity for people of all ages and just again give you another look at the park from a different angle. But anyway, they did for some reason get rid of this, which I think is such a shame, but at least nowadays they have introduced them Skyliners where you can get the same sort of effect and fit a lot more of your family on them at a time as well, which again, I'm still yet to ride. I haven't gone on the Skyliners yet, which I am so sad about. When I last went to Disney in 2019, they were actually still setting them up. I think we literally went out like 2 weeks before they opened, so we could see them operating and moving. They were all set up, but they just weren't open to the public yet, which was such a shame. But definitely when I go again, I know I sound like a broken record, but they are top priority to go on. I think they look so beautiful and must just be so fun and relaxing. And yeah, I definitely want to make that one of the first things I do when I go there. The next attraction, which opened on opening day in Fantasyland along with Magic Kingdom, was called the Mickey Mouse Revue. And I believe this was actually replaced with where PhilharMagic is now, which again, such an underrated show. Definitely go and watch it. I love PhilharMagic to probably an unhealthy level, if I'm honest. But I believe this Mickey Mouse Revue actually mirrored a similar concept to what we have in Mickey's PhilharMagic now. The only difference is instead of like a film movie on a screen, this was actually operated by animatronics, and it had a selection of different Disney characters, and they were all basically performing to the audience, just made as animatronics. Interestingly enough, from what I can see, they also had this in Tokyo Disneyland. I'm not too sure if they have this to this day, but this was taken over to Tokyo as well, so it was obviously very popular. However, it has since been replaced with PhilharMagic, like I said. And then the final attraction to open in Fantasyland with Magic Kingdom in 1971 was Dumbo the Flying Elephant. And as we know, this has since been moved and changed and upgraded a little bit. Obviously now there is a set of 2 Dumbo the Flying Elephants. I believe originally they were planned to be stacked on top of each other. However, they didn't do that in the end. They just made 2 separate ones that were next to each other. But yeah, again, such a classic ride and a really nice ride to go on if you want to get some really cute photos. And another little fun fact as well, which I found out, which is so random. I don't know the reasoning to why, but the original attraction of Dumbo the Flying Elephant in Magic Kingdom featured 10 elephants, but they all weren't wearing hats on opening day. And then Disney since changed that within the future of this attraction and added hats on them all. Again, I'm not too sure why they did this. The only reason I can think of is just to make it easier to pick them out. Obviously, when you go on this attraction, you can choose which elephant you ride in. So I think it's probably a lot easier to go the one with the orange hat, the one with the pink hat, rather than them all just looking the same. But again, that's just a theory. Don't quote me on that because I don't know it. I am just making a guess. Just throwing in a few more extra little rides. Again, ones that didn't quite make it to opening day, but were thereabouts, opened more or less around the same time. Peter Pan's Flight, again, such a classic ride, probably one of my top 3 rides in Magic Kingdom, along with It's a Small World. But Peter Pan's Flight didn't make it to opening day, but it opened on October the 3rd, so 2 days after the original opening day of Magic Kingdom, which again must have just been so frustrating for the creators, if I'm honest. It literally just missed the mark. Just missed it. But again, I basically feel like that falls under an opening day attraction as well. I feel like you can kind of tell when you go on Peter Pan that it is an opening day attraction. It does feel very retro when you ride it, but that's kind of why I love it so much. It's just so old school and nostalgic. I really love the use of like the UV lighting and stuff like that. It's really fun and magical, and even though it is a little bit clunky here and there, I really still do enjoy it. I think especially because they've definitely upgraded the queuing system too. That is a lot more interactive and modern. It kind of just makes the whole experience a little bit more magical as well. And even though the ride is a little bit older, definitely that queuing system has ranked it up a notch for me personally, at least. And then the other attraction, which opened in Fantasyland just after the opening day. So this opened on October 14th, so about 2 weeks after the original Magic Kingdom opening day, was 1,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which I know again was extremely popular and has been extremely missed since it's gone as well. It has since been replaced with Voyage to the Little Mermaid. And again, there is a lot of hidden details and secrets to 1,000 Leagues Under the Sea kind of hidden in that attraction to this day. But yes, I believe this was a really fun attraction. Again, I don't think I actually was lucky enough to go on it when it was operating, but from what I can see, it was an attraction where you almost like went in a submarine and went under the sea. I'm not too sure on the story or the narrative, but again, I know it was loved by a lot of people. Again, still talked about to this day by a lot of people. So if you were lucky enough to experience this, please let me know. I would love to hear about it in the comments below. And then finally, let's talk about Tomorrowland. So actually in Tomorrowland, there were only 2 attractions which opened along with opening day. And we have actually already spoken about one of them already as well, which was of course the Skyway to Fantasyland. It actually closed the year I was born in 1999. And I know I've already said this concept, but it was basically that Skyliner cable car system that took you from Tomorrowland to Fantasyland and back again. And then the second attraction which opened along with opening day was the Grand Prix Raceway, which now of course is the Tomorrowland Speedway. I believe it was a very similar concept in the fact that you drive your own cars around like a racetrack, but again has just been updated over time, so that is super interesting. Obviously it is slightly different but still the same. And that then basically takes me to the end of my list. So that is a very brief overview of all the attractions that opened on opening day, along with a sprinkle of some that opened just after opening day. But honestly, like I said at the start of this podcast, I find it so interesting that there are still so many operating. I don't think there's a lot of other theme parks around the world that have attractions which have been there since their very first opening day, especially when they've been running for as long as Magic Kingdom has. And I just find it so special that you can still go there to this day and ride some of them opening day attractions. And some of them haven't been tampered with hardly at all over the 50 years. So I'm definitely going to challenge myself next time I go to ride these opening day attractions where I can and just look at them at a new level and just think that they have been here longer than I've been here, basically. Over double my age they have been here for. And I would really encourage you to do the same. Like I said, all these attractions that have been there since the very beginning were all concepts from Walt Disney. These were all things that he wanted to be included in the park. So that just gives it an extra special layer as well. And I just really love that. I love Disney history and I just love looking at things in a different perspective like that as well. I know obviously they're fun and magical just if you look at them on the surface, but when you learn a little bit more about them as well, and like when they opened, their heritage, what was going on at the time, you can really get a better sense of how amazing these attractions were for the time they were created. So yes, I really hope you enjoyed. I really loved learning about opening day attractions and I'm excited to do it for the other parks in the future, especially Epcot. Epcot is my favourite park, which leads us on to next week's video. I will actually be talking about a different park, believe it or not. These first 4 episodes have all been about Magic Kingdom. Obviously it's a massive park. It's the first park to open in Florida, so there was a lot to cover with it, but I think I've actually got to a point where I'm satisfied at the minute of Magic Kingdom and I'm ready to talk about the next park, which is Epcot. That is the next park that opened in chronological order, and it is secretly, or maybe not so secretly, my favourite park as well. I always try and talk about this a little bit more. I was actually meant to mention this at the start of the video, but I feel like it's really interesting. So if you only had a 1-day ticket and you could only go to one park, I would definitely recommend going to Magic Kingdom. I think you have to do Magic Kingdom when you go. It is obviously the most well known, it's the most iconic, but actually for me personally it is not my favourite park, and it is not actually my second favourite park either, which is interesting as well, because obviously why am I recommending people to go to Magic Kingdom if it's not my favourite park? But I just think you have to go if that's the only park you can go to. But if you've got the option of going to all 4 parks, I would definitely say my favourite is Epcot, and then Animal Kingdom, which I know is quite controversial, and then it would be Magic Kingdom, and then it would be Disney Hollywood Studios, which again is interesting and controversial again, because my favourite attraction is actually Disney's Hollywood Tower of Terror, but I don't actually like Disney's Hollywood Studios that much. So obviously that's ranked 4th. But it has my favourite attractions, so again it's very difficult. This is why I need to get a ticket to all of the parks, because I literally love things about all of them. But yeah, I know it's just such a backwards way of thinking, but definitely Magic Kingdom is the one to go to if you've only got one opportunity. But if you've got the option to go to all 4, I would definitely say Epcot is my favourite and takes the win every single time. I love everything about it. I don't think there's actually anything in Epcot I don't enjoy doing. It is honestly just top tier. It was a park that was made and designed for me, so I'm going to be really excited to start talking about it in a little bit more detail next week. But I honestly think I've spoken enough. Can you believe I said it was going to be a short episode? And I think I've literally been talking for as long, if not longer, than I would in a normal podcast episode. But I really hope you enjoyed. I really hope you learned something new to take away with you on your next trip. There are definitely a few fun facts sprinkled along this episode, and I really hope you follow along and tune into next week's episode as well. All my links to my social media and messages, anything like that, will all be linked down below. So please give me a follow where you can if you want to. just so you don't miss out on anything, because we are uploading every single week. But apart from that, thank you so much again for spending this little bit of time with me. I really hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in next week's video. Bye!
But I'm so frustrated. Hello to my loneliness. I guess that ignorance is bliss. Take me back to before I knew. Rewind, take it out of cue. Innocence can be a young man's game. Signed up for the hall of shame. I wish I knew how much I miss not knowing. Screwed when we play our roles and ignore the problems. I like to be away in my patience. Stay up, I feel so outdated. How can we look the other way? Sun is out.